All right, so next segment we're going to be talking a little bit about the actual realms themselves within Mora. We'll start off at the most important, as it is essentially the bowl that all these ingredients have to fit into, and that is the Astral Seed. It's fairly complex to try and describe. The Realm of Mora is still relatively young, but it is encased by this swirling astral sea, essentially, if you want to think about it like a marble or something like that. In which the energies of the negative positive are contained within this and constantly shifting, kind of like oil and water, never necessarily holding a firm position wherever they are, but constantly changing and adapting and moving. This astral sea, held in the vastness of creation, would essentially act as again, the place to hold all the ingredients. It is immense in scale and size, incomprehensible by mortals. And the large vacant space and home to many of Mora's children. This is where a lot of the greater deities would reside, or at least travel to other places from. So they reside here in their forms and exist as they see fit. But they're always teasing the realm to fit their picture of which Mora had intended. So yeah, the Astral Sea is very vast and houses many other beings, other than, of course, the gods at this point in life, as things can live within the Astral Sea, monsters and other creatures, things like that. So next, we have the Ethereal Plane. This plane acts as the binding for the inner planes. It is largely vacant, consisting of streams of gray and blue and purple energies that kind of swirl around in it. It is a dense fog of space. So this is what's kind of filling the Astral Sea. There is a sense of gravity and weight, but it doesn't really obey the normal laws of physics by any means. When souls depart from their body, they will, under normal circumstances, travel and pass through the ethereal plane, where death is the ruler, and their fate will be decided from there on, or at least the fate of their soul, of course. So that's pretty much the ethereal plane. It's a ghostly place, full of ghosts. So next, we'll talk about the Feywilds. So first of all, the Feywild is home of the sun goddess Suthea. Suthea emerges from the Feywild during the day as she overtakes Nita during the day and retreats back to the Feywild during the night when Nita has her reign of power. She and Nita are constantly at war with one another, and every day she fights back Nita and they fight one another, and that's the day and night cycle of Mora on the material plane. So yeah, the Feywild acts as a direct mirror of the material plane. Mind you, time moves much faster. Magic is far more prominent, rampant, and creatures of the Fae thrive here. It is golden and warm and beautiful and lush, and it is always day. Suthea is often depicted as this kind of ceaseless light, immense beauty of sun. So that is the Feywild. So next would be the Shadowfell. The Shadowfell is, again, a mirror image of the material plane. However, here is the home of the moon goddess Nita. Nita emerges, again, from the Shadowfell during the night and retreats back to the Shadowfell during the day as Suthea fights her back and has her power during the day. So she and Suthea will never get along as far as this is concerned. And that is, therein lies the kind of balance that Mora originally had designed as well, is you absolutely need to have these counteracting points in order to create this balance on the material plane, or at least that was her intention in her design. Quite the opposite of the Feywilds. The Shadowfell is cold, dark, endless shadows and cold blackness. It is always night here. Time moves much slower, and it is home to many shadow creatures and is horrifically bleak, terrible place to live. It is cold enough that you can always see your breath. But like the Feywilds, magic here is very prominent, very powerful, just a little bit different than the Feywilds, where you'll have a lot of darker sorts of magical creatures as opposed to Fey creatures, which are generally fairies and things like that. You'll have shadows and shadow demons and stalkers and invisible elements, let's say. So it's a very horrifying place, very depressing. So that's the Shadowfell. So we'll move into the elemental planes now, and we'll first talk about the plane of fire. So Kadal is the greater deity that rules over the plane of fire. He's harsh, cruel. Dal is often depicted as this great flame of endless heat and fury. The plane of fire is a smoldering bastion of flames. Molten rock drift and form masses of scorched lands that blaze with winds of fire. It is essentially uninhabitable unless you are immune to fire. The sky itself is fire. So the creatures that dwell there are few and far between, but they are quite resistant to this climate and live as such. So that is essentially the plane of fire. It is a land of fire and flames. So the opposite of that, I guess we will talk about the plane of water. So the ruler of the plane of water is Oshina. She is truly neutral in her respects and is only really concerned about the natural order of things. She believes in a law and a specific flow to maintain the balance in things. She's rarely interferes directly in the matters of mortals and other gods unless she feels it is absolutely her duty to maintain this balance and this lawful path of neutrality that she alone holds and embodies. So she is often depicted as just this great body of water with an overextended embrace. The plane of water itself is just an endless body of water, no surfaces. Plants, coral, kind of create these massive submerged fortresses for the creatures that do dwell there. So life obviously does exist, but there is no sky in the plane of water. It is just completely water. So next is the plane of air. So Poi is essentially the ruler of the plane of air, although Poi has no concerns. He is truly neutral. Is only concerned whatever will happen, and the less interference Poi can create, the happier and more content they are. Poi never interferes with the matters of mortals or other gods and chooses to do as they see fit, going with the flow wherever they want and can. Poi is often never depicted, but if he is depicted, it's just simply a calming breeze that never ceases but caresses and neither invites nor deters. It's just a calm breeze. So the plane of air is a bit of a strange place with a kind of odd sense of gravity that forms any masses of water and earth into essentially small islands, which create their own gravitational pull upon themselves. So you kind of see forms of rock and mass and matter forming small little mini worlds that kind of float around this vastly empty space of just air, where certain creatures can at least live, thrive, survive. So yeah, it's a very odd sense of gravity there. It really helps to fly, which is why a lot of things do fly. So it is in certain areas at least possible to kind of leap from one mass of land to another with enough luck and strength perhaps, and proper care. Otherwise, that's the interesting thing about the plane of air is inadvertently Poi causes a lot more change than he would ever take credit for or even know about. So next we'll talk about the plane of earth, which the ruler of the plane of earth and goddess is Mora. Mora is tough, unmovable, and stubborn. She is determined to bring the full mass of the material plane to bear eventually. She just wants to cover all the world with all the land. Mora's only real goal is to move more and more earth to the surface. She just wants to create more land. She is depicted as a massive titanic mountain that slowly kind of barrels through whatever in its path. Sometimes she is depicted as this great giant sort of dwarfen woman of immense power. As the actual plane of earth is essentially just a massive enclosed cavern where mountains grow within these vast caverns that are thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, both deep and hollow, as it's kind of hard to describe. You would expect the gravitational pull to be around the edges of this more specifically than the center, so you almost would have this kind of hollowed center, but if it weren't filled with, of course, matter. So that would be the plane of Earth. It doesn't mean to say that there isn't water and vegetation here. It's just there's a severe lack of sky here, as it is in completely enclosed environment. So that's basically the plane of Earth. Lastly, I guess you have the Material Plane. By far the most important, because this is essentially where all of the other planes are meant to converge to create the utopia that was in Mora's mind. That doesn't happen because all of the gods seem to have their own idea of what a utopia should look like, thus causing a little bit of conflict, a lot of conflict. So yeah, the Material Plane is essentially Avena's house. Avena was first created to essentially be the mother of all of the living creatures of the Material Plane, with the help of her brothers and sisters of the inner planes themselves as well. So Avena gave life to the first creatures that rose up in Mora and is the goddess of life. The Material Plane is where most life, civilizations, and thus worshippers are found, and as it is the plane that which all forms can be manifest as well. It's like not everyone can go to the plane of fire and survive, but pretty much everyone can come to the Material Plane and do okay. No matter where you're from. So it's kind of that really great convergence where essentially everything can live and thrive if given the opportunity to. It is the ultimate vision of true balance that Mora had intended, to be put on display at the center of her realm for all to see. And ideally every part of the tree that makes up the entire realm itself contributes to this vision of perfection at the very center. The Material Plane itself is in a globe sense. It has a diameter of about 5,400 miles, which is slightly larger than like Mercury, not nearly as large as Earth in terms of perspective. The year that offers here is a little bit different than what our Earth year would be. It's comprised of 18 months, each of which has exactly 28 days and consists of 7 days for each week, which has 4 weeks. So the general climate on Mora is fairly mild, floating around sort of 18, 22 degrees Celsius, that is, most of the year. So you have a couple of seasons. You have the warm season and you have the cooler season. During the warm season, temperatures overall around the realm become quite a bit higher. You can reach temperatures in some of the hotter areas, especially deserts, up to 40 degrees Celsius. During the cold seasons, the temperature of Mora drops overall, but is majority only seeing a small decrease in temperature, bringing the overall temperature around like 5 to 10 degrees. But there are certain regions that are a bit colder, especially high elevation, high altitude areas, where the temperatures can reach far below freezing all times of the year, but especially in the cold season. So yeah, I believe that covers the general basics. Okay, so next section, maybe we'll talk about all of the different gods and the minor gods as well, and kind of what they do in Mora. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Matt from MiniWorldMasters again, and we'll see you next time.